Hey y'all, iRick's Guy here, and I want to provide some buyer's advice for anyone that's shopping for an Apple Silicon Mac. So right here in my right hand, I've got the Apple MacBook Air M1. I've got 8 gigs of memory and 512 gigs of SSD storage. And then behind me, I've got the Mac Mini M1 with 16 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte SSD storage, and it's plugged into this third-party monitor. So just want to provide some quick buyer's advice. So for starters, at the time of filming this, today's December the 19th of 2020, there are 3 Apple Silicon Macs to choose from. There's the MacBook Air, which I have right here. It comes in 3 different colors. It comes in gold, space gray, and silver. You can get an 8 gig or 16 gig memory option. And as far as storage, I think it's 256, 512, 1 terabyte, and I think they may offer a 2 terabyte storage option as well. The Mac Mini behind me, same type deal. You can go 8 or 16 gigs. Neither of these can go beyond 16 gigs of memory. But what's interesting about that, if you do decide to purchase an Apple Silicon Mac, and expand this video's description and click the link there, and you can find them all there. But if you do decide to purchase an Apple Silicon Mac, you may be like, well, I can't go past 16 gigs of memory on the MacBook Air or the Mac Mini. Why is that? I think once you start using them and you see how powerful these things are, you're going to be like, oh, Intel and Apple Silicon, that's 2 different technologies. You can't compare, if you were in the Intel world and you had 32 gigs of RAM, you can't say, oh, well, I had 32 gigs of RAM in the Intel world. I can only go 16 gigs of RAM in the in the MacBook Air M1 or Mac Mini M1 world. Don't look at it like that. These things, once you get your hands on them, it's like, whoa. I'm using a base, a somewhat base model Mac with Apple Silicon, and it's smoking pretty much every Intel out there. It's crazy. So, your choices are, at the time of posting this, the Mac Mini M1, the MacBook Air M1, or the MacBook Pro 13-inch M1. Now, personally, I don't have any interest in the MacBook Pro 13-inch because the reason is that this one right here, this MacBook Air, number one, I don't get the touch bar at the top. I dislike the touch bar. I prefer these physical buttons. And even though this has physical buttons, they're backlit, and there's also a Touch ID on the right. So I just don't have that goofy little LCD or LED, whatever technology it is, bar that's up above, that's there instead of the function keys. I don't miss that. I mean, it was all right. It was gimmicky, but I just, I don't want it. Also, the MacBook Pro 13-inch, at least at the time posting this, it only comes in silver or space gray. The MacBook Air, you can get it in gold. That's why I got it in gold, man. It looks cool. It's a neat looking computer. And this thing is so slim and so lightweight, and it does not have a fan, which is awesome. And I mean, I've been editing. I did a few hours of video editing on this thing this morning, and it didn't heat up. I had it in my lap, and I was touching it. I'm like, man, this thing's got to at least be somewhat warm, and it wasn't. So the thermals of Apple Silicon, it's incredible. But I probably wouldn't even consider the MacBook Pro 13-inch. Now, when they do come out in the future with the 16-inch, if you're looking for a system that's kind of your desktop replacement that you're often not going to use in conjunction with an external monitor, then that could be a different animal. You might want to consider the MacBook Pro 16-inch when that comes out. But for now, you're looking at MacBook Pro 13, MacBook Air, or Mac Mini. And really, I would limit my decision between MacBook Air M1 or Mac Mini M1, and then I would ask myself, okay, is this something I'm going to be using in the office only? And if so, just get the Mac Mini M1. And with it, with the Mac Mini M1, the reason I say that is that you do get a few extra ports. You get an HDMI port, and you get 1, 2, I think it's 2 old style USBs, 2 USB-Cs, HDMI, and a network. So, if you want those old style USB ports, that's something you get on this. that you don't get on the MacBook Air. Curiously enough, the MacBook Air has 2 USB-C ports. I think they're also, was it Thunderbolt 3 or Thunderbolt 4, whatever the technology is. But they're USB-C form factor. There's 2 of them on here, and there's only 2 USB-Cs on the Mac Mini. So neither of these is going to give you more than 2 USB-C ports. Because see, on this MacBook Air, 2 USB-Cs, and it's got a headphone jack. You know, if I could tell Apple anything and they'd listen to me, I would say, hey man, forget about the headphone jack. You know, we don't need that anymore. Put us 2 more USB-Cs over there. You know, and this 2 USB-Cs is more than enough. Number one, the battery life on this thing is so phenomenal that I'll probably not even have to plug it in during the day. And number 2, by having 2 USB-Cs, because you know I'm not going to be using it while it's plugged in for the most part, by having 2 USB-Cs, I could have one if I need to connect external storage device, or you know maybe I'm doing a professional audio recording. I want to connect my my Rodecaster Pro or this USB Rode microphone here. I could do that. You know, so I've got 2 USB-C ports is more than enough for me. So this you know, again, if you're on a budget and you're not going to be doing any heavy lifting, you're not going to be doing editing 4K video or anything like that, I would go as far as to say, get the MacBook Air, just get the bare bones base configuration. Just the 256 gigs of SSD and 8 gigs of memory. If you are going to be doing video editing or something that's more storage intensive, bump it up a little bit. Still get the 8 gigs of memory, but get the get the 512 or 1 terabyte SSD. I probably wouldn't go beyond the 1 terabyte SSD because things get expensive. If you need that much storage, just plug you in an external USB-C SSD or plug in a USB-C external mechanical hard drive, you know, for that mass file storage if you need that. But I mean, these things really smoke. I mean, they are M1 is incredible. And again, I've got both just simply because I want my studio computer. It's just my dedicated studio for the computer. And then I've got this one I can use in the field, or I can also use in the studio when I'm doing a live show. I can take my MacBook Air over there to my studio set and, you know, administer my ATEM Mini Pro that does the real-time chroma keying and all of that. So it's Apple Silicon is without a doubt the future, and that's where Apple's going. So if I was buying one of the, you know, the first Apple Silicon Macs that came out, and I could only buy one, and I needed or thought I might need portability, out of doubt, I'd go with the MacBook Air. But if I knew that there was nothing I would be doing with it in the field, you know, maybe when I'm in the field I only use my iPhone or I only use my iPad, in that situation, I would go with the Mac Mini. So limit your decision between MacBook Air M1 or Mac Mini M1. So if you need portability, go with MacBook Air. But if you don't need portability, you can get the Mac Mini M1. You could get a bare bones configuration of it super affordably. So again, expand this video's description and then click the link there and you can find the various configurations. It doesn't take a lot of horsepower for these things to fly. So don't let the base model configuration of either of these be like, man, that just seems too weak. Don't let that deter you, because I think once you get it in your hands and you start doing whatever you're doing with it, in my case, I'm editing 4K video on this 8 gig MacBook Air with 512 gig of SSD. And that's incredible. I wouldn't have thought that 8K video edits and exports would have been as smooth as they are. You know, I was saying this is just going to be kind of a super gimped experience, and it's not. And, you know, truthfully, the 16 gig option that I have on the Mac Mini M1, you know, processor's the same. They're both M1. But check out my other videos, subscribe to my channel, and check out my comparison videos and see for yourself how these two perform and how they're neck and neck. And if there's anything in particular that you would like to see me test with these Apple Silicon Macs, comment below, because I'm looking for video ideas. And obviously I've got both of these Macs, So if there's something that I can do that may provide value, I'll be happy to do it. And, I'm looking for video ideas. But I love this. I've got my field computer and I've got my dedicated studio computer. And also, I can remote, using Mac OS, I can remote into the desktop and control the screen of this just as if I was sitting in front of it. And that's a feature that's built into Mac OS Big Sur. Check out my other video where I explain that, how to remotely connect to a Mac computer's desktop. So, if I'm in another part of the studio, I can have my MacBook Air and I can remote in and manipulate files on my, my Mac Mini's desktop. So it's just Apple's done a wonderful job. And this Apple Silicon, it is not, it totally shocked me, because when it was first announced, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a watered down experience. It's going to be the first of its kind. It's not going to be powerful at all. Intel is going to run circles around it. And that's not the case. Their first of breed chips, their M1s, run circles around Intel. And Apple was so quiet about it, they didn't even say it. They're just like, and it came out, it's like, whoa, they, Apple downplayed the performance of these. And again, the other thing that I mentioned earlier, the thermals. This doesn't burn your crotch when you're sitting there, typing with it in your lap. And that was the thing with the MacBook Pro 16-inch. Your legs and your crotch would be on fire because the thing got so hot. Even if you weren't video editing and exporting, if you were just casually browsing the web, those Intel chips got so hot. This is cool to the touch, man. I mean, it is so cool. So I love it. I really do. So if you're looking for either of these Macs, the various configurations, again, expand this video's description and then click the link there. And I appreciate your viewership. And thanks in advance for the questions that you may choose to post below, because I'm looking for video topics for future videos. I appreciate it, and y'all have a good day. Hey y'all, Captain Irix Guy here. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to subscribe. It's youtube.com/Irix Guy. And ring that bell icon when you do to be notified whenever I post another video. Thanks for your viewership, and y'all have a good day.